If you find yourself constantly dying as a support player, there are tons of reasons for that, but in this video, I'm going to be covering some great tips that you can implement into your gameplay right now so that you could start dying less as a support player no matter the circumstances. But before we get into the video, if you want guides just like this one that are going to help you rank up today, make sure you go over to GameLeap.com and get yourself a subscription. We have so many guides and we have new ones coming out every single day that are going to help you dominate ranked in Overwatch. Once again, go to GameLeap.com and get your subscription today. The first thing we need to talk about is what you're going to be playing against. The most simple thing you want to think about every single time that you die as a support is who killed me and are they going to do it again? For example, if you are playing Zenyatta and Reaper has killed you 3 times now, the chances that he's going to do it again are very high. So the most simple option to stay alive more versus dive or a Reaper that's constantly flanking you as Zenyatta is to swap off to a safer hero. But that's not always necessary and it's not always something that you might be willing to do. So ask yourself every single time you die, were my teammates nearby? If the answer is no, then how do you expect to 1v1 a Reaper Zenyatta unless you're hitting all your shots? This brings us into our first big tip. As an immobile support, whether you're on Ana, Zenyatta, or Brigitte, any hero that has low mobility, you really need to be playing near your teammates. Whether it's on attack or defense, every 5 to 10 seconds, I want you to look around, realize where you're at in relation to your teammates, and if you aren't within one Genji's dash length of a teammate, then you aren't in a good enough spot. Now, there are some caveats to this, like maybe your teammates push really far into the enemy spawn and you're not comfortable with that, and that's completely fine. Don't push up with them, but just tell them to fall back a little bit. A really simple way to position near your teammates is to simply pick one person and then follow them around at a short distance behind them the entire round, whether it's a tank or a DPS or even your other support. Just pick someone and shadow them so that anytime something goes wrong, you can immediately look to them for help. Now, let's talk about some counters and who to swap to whenever you're getting dove if this strategy just doesn't work. A few heroes that are really good against flankers or dive comps are Lucio, Moira, Kiriko, and sometimes Baptiste. These heroes are going to give you some good mobility and survivability in almost every situation that should allow you to easily escape enemy flankers and dives. The next tip I have for you is that anytime as a support player, if you are playing against heroes that like to flank, whether it's a Tracer, a Genji, a Soldier, literally anyone that can go on you in your backline, you do not want to fight them. And I see a ton of people that love to fight those duels, and most of the time they lose. Sometimes they win, but at what cost? And you might ask, what are my options if not to fight? Well, the most simple and easiest option is to simply walk towards your teammates while spamming the need healing button. And even if the enemies are in between you and your teammates, it's almost always best to be seeking out your other support or your tank or even a DPS player that's nearby that can help you deal with that flanker, even if that flanker is in between you and your teammates. Many people will just back away from the enemies whenever they get dove, which is almost always going to be backing away from their teammates as well. And when I'm playing support and my other support does this, it's almost impossible to save them when they could have just ignored the monkey that was on top of them and walked towards me. Then I would have been able to save their life, we would have been able to deal with the monkey together, and we would have won the team fight. But instead, they walk away from me, they end up dying, and we end up losing the fight because of it. Learning to walk into the danger and come out safer on the other side is a really important thing to learn as a support player. And adding on to this, as a support player, if you are on Moira or Ana or any support that deals good damage, you have to realize that even if you are being flanked by a hero that you could easily 1v1, you are first and foremost a healer. You might ask, well, coach, if a Genji or Tracer is on me, I have to fight him or else I'll die. Well, sometimes yes, but a good number of those times you could easily just walk away from them towards your team while you're still healing your teammates and not wasting abilities on that 1v1. That Genji or that Tracer or whoever wants to duel you is not just trying to kill you. What they're trying to do is distract you and waste your time, and if they kill you, well, that's just a benefit. If you spend 10 seconds or more looking for the flanker, that is 10 whole seconds that your tank and your DPS don't get any heals at all. And it's extremely important that you don't let yourself get distracted by flankers and instead try to position yourself so that the flankers waste their time looking at you while you're still completing your job as a healer. When you find an enemy constantly harassing you, whether it's in your backline, again, all you have to do is just position yourself a little closer to your teammates so that the enemies can waste their time trying to pick you off, but you can still be healing your teammates, and whenever you get some downtime, you can either call one of your DPS or your other support over so that you can take the flanker on together. A great example of this is as an Ana player, if you sleep a Genji in your backline, then you spend the 3 seconds that he's asleep staring at him while waiting for one of your teammates to come over and help finish him off, and your tank dies. Guess whose fault that was? I'm guilty of doing this, and honestly, it's hard to realize your priorities as a support sometimes, but it's very important to try and catch yourself when you're doing things like this and making sure that you fix it as soon as possible. The next tip that I have for you is making sure that you're positioning for the hero that you're playing. If you're a Moira main and you swap over to Ana or Zenyatta, you don't have a get out of jail free card anymore. You can't simply fade away to safety, and your positioning absolutely needs to reflect that. Make sure that you are constantly rotating to safer positions as well as rotating with your teammates when you're playing less mobile supports and you're not getting caught up trying to push with your teammates on the front line, or else the enemies will quickly take advantage of this. When you're playing on defense, this is especially important. Sometimes you win a fight and your teammates want to push up further than is comfortable for a support player. You really have to find a middle ground on how far to push up, but also still being supportive of your teammates. If your teammates go a little too far up, I love to spam to tell my teammates the fallback ping, and if they end up pushing up further than I can see, I will either type or tell them in voice chat or just spam the fallback ping some more, making sure that they don't go way too far out of my line of sight. You really don't want to let your teammates positioning bait you out of your high ground positioning or your good positioning wherever you are, especially if they have a lot of mobility. If you drop off the high ground to heal your monkey that went a bit too deep and he gets out safely with his jump, but now you're in front of all of the enemies, guess who's gonna die for this? Not your monkey, it's gonna be you. Unless you have some sort of support directly under you and you're on the ground right next to your entire team, it's really not worth it to give up your positioning to try and save a teammate if that is going to get you killed. When you're on your attack side, you can push up slightly more aggressively than you would on your defense, but on attack, you have to understand the enemy's priorities. Whether you're on control point, push, or payload maps, the enemy's main goal is to stop your team from capturing the objective. You want to be positioning yourself in a way so that the enemies either have to choose between fighting you or stopping your teammates from capturing the objective. And this can be as simple as playing off the objective slightly further away from your teammates and then moving with them, or playing super far away with a hero like Ana and then just scoping in to heal your teammates. Whenever you do this, the enemies will either have to waste their time getting to you and then fighting you, or just fighting your teammates on the objective while you freely heal them. And most of the time, you're going to win that fight because longer fights going on the objective are going to be in favor of the team that has the better positioning, as well as who can safely sustain their teammates for longer. If the enemies do choose you though, you have some good options. You can either lead them further away from the objective, which I wouldn't do, or you can do the thing we talked about earlier, which is walking straight towards your team, and that is probably your best option. Fighting on the objective as a support is very chaotic, but getting help from your teammates is more important than leading the enemies further away from the objective, because if you die, then the enemies are closer to the objective with their spawn on the defender side than you are to the objective most of the time. So you really want to stay alive and make sure that you're going towards your team instead of away from them at all costs. And this is going to be the end of this video. Thank you all for watching, and if I missed anything, make sure you tell me in the comments, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Make sure that you check out our Overwatch 2 website. It is constantly being updated with new guides on every single hero, so make sure that you check out the website link right now in the description, or go to GameLeap.com and sign up today.